Talking with Words.
Hey, welcome back to Talking with Words. You're here with Rob.
Ryan.
And David.
Yeah. We're going to do Last of Us. Episode
Yay.
1, Season 1. And if you played the video game, you probably know what we're getting into here. And we're going to see if Sally can manage it. So regarding The Last of Us, Episode 1, if you don't know what it's about, it is described as Joel and Ellie, a pair connected through the harshness of the world they live in, are forced to endure brutal circumstances and ruthless killers on a trek across post-pandemic America. And you will recognize Joel as Pedro Pascal. Ellie, what has Ellie been in? Anybody know? Bella Ramsey? I've seen her before.
She was in Game of Thrones.
Ah, that's it. She was the young bear.
The Mormonts.
Yeah. Gabriel Luna, he was in Terminator something or other, right? Wasn't he the latest evil Terminator? Genesis, that's the one.
Yeah.
Nick Offerman is Bill. There's probably a lot more people that I'm not mentioning. Oh, John Hannah's in it.
Yeah.
The brother from The Mummy.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, he is.
And Josh Brenner, who was in Silicon Valley.
Hot damn.
Hot damn. Hey, Sally,
Yes.
would you like to read us the Parents' Guide?
Well, of course, Rob. Today's Parents' Guide says sex and nudity, none. Violence and gore, severe. Profanity, severe. Alcohol, drugs, and smoking, mild. Frightening, intense scenes, severe. Hey, I do have a question, though.
Sure.
I read up here on critics' reviews. I'm not reading a review. It says Roger Ebert. Is that the guy with half the chin missing? You know who I'm talking
You
about?
mean Siskel's partner?
The guy that's missing half his face?
Yeah, I think so. He's still alive, right?
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He does movie reviews. I just didn't know if that was him.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's one half of Siskel and Ebert. Give it 2 thumbs up.
Also, I skipped over Anna Torv. She was in a TV show.
Fringe.
Fringe. Oh, I loved her in Fringe.
Oh.
Yes.
She was
really good.
she was awesome.
I just started watching Fringe on Sunday.
Fringe
It
is solid.
fantastic.
Yeah, really good show.
Yeah. It's a good one. So we're gonna watch this.
I
Sally?
might not make it.
Oh, yeah, you probably won't make it.
You can do it.
You know, if you make it through however long the prologue is, you'll be in. Agreed, David?
Yes.
Have you seen this, David?
Yeah, I've watched it.
Can't tell if it's a series
What
yes
was
or not.
that guy's name? Roger Ebert?
Yes.
That's the focus. All right, we're watching a show on HBO, The Last of Us.
Yeah, that was hype.
We're gonna. Do they play the music from the game too?
They do, actually.
I heard that.
So I'm glad you brought that up because I'll probably forget to mention this when we talk about it later. I'm curious if the artist Gustavo Santaolalla, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I kind of hope he made bank with them carrying the music over from the game to the show because it's I don't know how the licensing for that works, but he deserves it because the music's a big part of it.
Good for you, bud.
Did you order food?
All right, we'll
Yeah,
be back.
that's right.
Man, that was The Last of Us, Season 1, Episode 1. Woo! I loved it.
Hey-o.
If you like the game at all, you're going to love this episode. I don't know how the series is going to work out, but damn, that was good.
Yeah. So for my part, I will say, anytime you make a pilot of anything, that's generally the weakest episode that there's going to be. This one came out of the gate, just going. And this is, I would say, based on this first episode, anyone out there that is thinking of adapting a game, especially one that's more a story that you're playing through, if you're trying to adapt that into any type of visual media, this is what you need to be looking at.
This is the template from now on.
Yeah, this is your example.
Well, this game is so character driven. and they did a perfect job of making you care about every character that you met that you're supposed to care about.
Yeah, and yes, and we'll get into specifics. I do want to say I think a lot of this can be chalked up to the fact that Neil Druckmann, who is the producer of the game, is one of the showrunners.
Oh yeah.
So clearly he's still got his hand in it and is keeping this very, very, very true to the story in the source material.
I mean, it was. I mean, there were shot-for-shot pieces that I noticed.
Oh yeah,
in the intro,
shots, dialogue, all of it.
Yeah, and I mean, like I was saying, I played the intro multiple times because my system crashed. So that whole prologue, I recognized a lot of stuff just because I played it 3 times. After the time jump, I was a little more out, but there were still tons of that were just spot on. And they were able to do world building without stepping out of the character piece of it, and they didn't have to sidestep the story to do world building, which I love. The way they did it was very fluid. It was just mostly like single shots for a second that would just, this is what the world is now. Show,
don't tell.
Yeah, exactly.
But so both of us have played the game. We're both very familiar with it.
Yeah.
I don't think we've given Ryan a chance to say what his thoughts are. Coming from outside.
Hey, what'd you think, bud?
So this is supposed to be a video game? Is that what I understand?
Dreamcast.
Okay. No, it was, again, not having played the game, I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see where the story goes. I'm assuming you guys have a good idea of how this is going to play out, at least to a certain extent.
Pretty fucking good, yeah. I think we both played the game multiple times, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is this on Atari? Sega?
I mean, even Sally said she liked it, which I was impressed by that.
That says a lot, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good. Like I said, I feel like this is one where it's maybe, I don't know, maybe it's going to be better for me not having ever played the game because I don't know what's going to happen, and there's still that level of suspense.
Yeah. Well, and like when we were watching the opening, Sally was like, "Oh, he's going to die." And I was like, "Hee hee hee." Because, she didn't know, and they set it up for people that don't know. I mean, that's a classic. What was the line he said? Like, until the day I die or something like that, which is a classic you're going to die line from horror or those kind of types. And she identified it, which, hey, she's learning. She's adapting. But she was wrong.
Clever girl.
Yeah. There was a lot in it that followed typical outbreak or zombie film protocol, if you will.
Yeah. Let's talk about that intro. And by the way, we're going to do spoilers. David and I are going to try not to talk about future episodes, game stuff.
Hey,
so,
thanks.
Yeah. There are take 2. There are spoilers for episode 1 of The Last of Us. The intro, the prologue, I don't know if you can even call it prologue because it was like half the episode.
Yeah, it was like 20 minutes.
Well, let's sit back because there was actually an intro that was not in the game. So when you play the game, you have the prologue, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
And then you got like the music playing, kind of the title piece, and during that there is some dialogue that's like newscasts explaining what is happening. But instead of doing that doesn't really work well for a TV show. So they had it like an old talk show back in, I think it was in the
68.
68, where you have Big Head from Silicon Valley interviewing these 2 scientists, and I think were they both epidemiologists?
One was a virologist.
One was a virologist,
Okay.
and one was an epidemiologist.
Okay. And he's talking to the 2 of them about, are you worried about viruses? And one of them says yes, which, he kind of lays out.
He talks about pandemic because it's a worldwide epidemic. Yeah.
But then the other guy talks about fungi that could come in and, take over your brain. And I won't go into the whole thing, but the first guy kind of jumps back in and says, well, that wouldn't happen. To which the reply is, well, no, right now, fungi have to have this lower temperature, but let's imagine a world in which the temperature has risen.
Yeah.
So kind of playing on
theoretically
on
with
climate
global
change.
warming.
Yeah, exactly. So that makes it kind of resonate with the audience. Like, oh, okay, this he's laying out the case for what could be now.
Which this was a
Pretty
very
fact based too.
Oh yeah, it was a very short section, and a lot of people at this point have heard of the zombie fungus that takes over ants and it makes them crawl up trees and get eaten by birds so that they can release their spores. Have you guys heard about that?
Yes. It's the cordyceps, which is what was
the
all
whole
stuff.
Yeah. And there were two other things in that I really liked. One, he talked about how when the fungus does take over, it prevents decomposition in the body for as long as it possibly can, which goes into the whole what the creatures are in this show.
Yeah.
And
that was a really good touch.
And also he was talking about how fungus, he's talking about like shrooms and all the different stuff that can cause hallucinogenic effects in the mind. And that shot after that was all the people just dead staring at what is essentially a TV.
Yeah.
I love that shot of just
the mouth gape and everybody's just like,
just we're all zombies watching the TV anyway. Yeah, that was just a great shot. But yeah, that ends with if this happens, we're fucked, essentially. And then we jump to
because there's not a lot that combats fungi.
Yeah. Which in the game, I think it was
standpoint.
2013 or 15, or it was like when the game came out, wasn't it?
I believe so. So it would have been 2013. I think, and I actually, when I watched this the first time, I watched the thing at the end where they were talking about it, and they purposefully changed the timing so that the future events, so the now of the show, is concurrent with our now, just a different, how things would be if all this had gone down.
Like a parallel universe type of thing.
Just to make it feel more immediate, so it's not just, and that's kind of how they put it, is like it could have been 2033, but then it's, that's still kind of out there.
Then you have that Escape from New York syndrome where it's 98 and New York is, let's just do a parallel universe instead.
Exactly, yeah.
So then we jump to 2003, and this is where we have the introduction of Sarah, Joel, who is Pedro Pascal, and Tommy, who is Joel's brother. Sarah's Joel's daughter. And they did such a great job of making you fall in love with, because in the game you play Sarah in this section, and they did a great job of making you fall in love with Sarah. She was, a little bit atypical of that age because she was really, really smart. She was able to handle herself as far as civilization. She knew what to do to get from point A to point B to point C, and I love that they showed how capable she was.
Yeah, and she just seemed like a really nice kid, really likable.
And she loved pancakes. I don't know why I thought that was.
She loved pancakes.
That first interaction where you meet Sarah and Tommy or Sarah and Joel, and I guess ultimately Tommy at the end.
Yeah,
the whole focus was on pancakes.
Yeah, but the other
that entertained me for some reason.
You're hungry
because I love pancakes.
Oh, well, I mean, breakfast is apparently the most important meal of the day.
Yeah, everybody loves pancakes, but Joel.
Brenner. That's breakfast dinner.
But the benefit of having her be that central character at the beginning, partly because it's important that you have a connection with this character, but also you can see everything that's going on in the world, and it makes sense that she's not quite picking up on some of the warning signs, stuff that, she sees it, but she's not really putting together that, okay, something really bad's going down.
Right.
And during all of this, her dad is at a work site. Joel is working construction, so he's not seeing all of this happen because he would be more likely, in my opinion, to put all that together.
Right. And especially Tommy, because Tommy was a combat veteran. Yeah. They kind of do that nod to him being military, ex-military, I guess, because their construction is or at least contractors or something. Mm-hmm. And there was one scene right before we get to that point where when he sat down at the table, she said something about breakfast and going to work and everything, and he pulled his sleeve up to look at his watch and slapped his wrist like, oh shit, still didn't fix the watch. I like that shot a lot, knowing that the watch is what it is.
Yeah. So, well, but let me run through a few of the warning signs that were happening. So, she goes to school and she's sitting there getting ready. It's the end of the day. I think it was like 2:30, and she's ready to leave. And you see light shining on her wrist. Now, in a lot of movies, that's where the friend is shining something on the main character to get their attention, right? In this case,
I thought it was another kid flirting with her in class. I thought that's where it was going.
But in this case, she turns and looks, and it's just this kid that has, a gold chain of some sort on his wrist, and his arm is twitching.
Yeah,
which is kind of weird, but she doesn't really think too much about it. So then she leaves school. She goes downtown to get the watch fixed. There are all these police driving by. Then the shopkeeper's wife comes out, basically throws her out of the store.
Yeah.
Tells her
after she gets the watch fixed.
Yeah, like you need to go home, lock your door, whatever.
Yeah.
We close at 7. It's only 3:15.
Yeah.
Yep, we're closing.
And I think they're speaking Arabic at that point, so you don't know exactly what she's telling her husband.
Right.
But it sounded like she got a call. I thought I heard like telephone in there or something, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, they had the news playing in the background or the TV, radio, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. But there's also helicopters and F-Series aircraft.
And there were a couple of those wide shots of the city. I was trying to look and see if there was anything in the background. I didn't catch anything, but I'm going to watch it again and see if there's any, like Shaun of the Dead type shots where there's something in the background to show you kind of what you're getting into eventually as she's leaving the city, looking at the bus windows.
Then she gets home and you got jets flying over. And she goes into the neighbor's house because she said she'd go hang out there, where unfortunately she has to make raisin cookies.
They don't have chocolate chips.
Yeah, but it's this older couple that lives next to her family with, I assume it's one of their mothers that's there, like a much older woman who, in a side comment from the woman that invited her over, you find that older woman is deaf.
Yep. She's pretty much a vegetable in a wheelchair.
Yeah, she kind of looks like her eyes are there, but she doesn't speak. She doesn't really move. But there's a point while Sarah, the girl, is looking at some DVDs, and unfocused in the background is this older woman sitting in her chair, and she starts to kind of twitch, and her mouth opens, and it's silent, but you can see her like something's horrible
happening.
Is about to happen.
Yeah.
And at that point, of course, Ellie turns like, hey, can I borrow this? And she leaves the house.
And they cut away from it.
Yeah.
Well, and then right before she leaves, the dog's whimpering at the old woman in the chair.
Which I'm glad you brought that up, because the dog is sitting there, head cocked, like it knows something is wrong.
Yeah.
And the scenes with the dog were really like those were some I could relate to, because you guys may not have noticed. I'm kind of a dog person.
You have a dog? Huh. Hey, Cal. How's it going over there, buddy?
But like seeing that dog, like I kind of felt for it, because it knows something's wrong.
Also, the wife of that family had a line that I wrote down because it was, I've never heard it. 3 nails, 1 cross, forgiven.
Oh, yeah.
She was just in the religious thing as they were going in there to make cookies.
Yeah.
To make raisin cookies after she requested chocolate chip, which is the worst thing ever, to bite into a raisin cookie and realize it's not chocolate chip.
At least she was warned up front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and she refuses to take cookies home after that.
Oh, she forces them in her backpack. She's like, "You're taking these to your dad." He's on Atkins, right?
Yeah. She probably planned to give this to Tommy. He'll take anything. So at that point, she makes her escape. She goes back.
Did we talk about the grandma there?
Yeah.
As she's
the twitching.
Twitching as she's checking out the crazy videotape.
Yeah. Have you checked out?
Yeah. No. Well, I was. So I was looking up. I was curious because that was supposed to take place in Austin, correct?
I think that section takes place in
Austin, Texas.
I think so.
Oh,
so I was just curious because we were talking about how aloof she was to helicopters and planes and stuff. So I was curious if there was a major military base or Air Force base right there, because if you have if you've got an Air Force base around you, you're used to jets and helicopters.
Flybys and whatnot.
Like, I used to live by MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, and
it's nothing odd.
Yeah, it's not that odd. Last time I was in Pensacola, F-18's going over, and so it's not really anything out of the ordinary. Now, if there's fire trucks and everything going around, that
starts to up the ante a little bit.
Right, but especially if there's an Air Force base right there, that may not be anything odd to them.
Yeah, fair point.
So she goes home.
So she goes home.
Yeah, and after a while, Joel gets back, and
10 o'clock, an hour late. Got a cake.
No cake.
And they turn on the movie that she has found after she gives him the watch.
Didn't anyone see what the name of the movie was?
I tried. It was something.
I did. It's from the game. It's the movie from the game.
Something too.
Like Hidden Vipers or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember from the game, but it's been a while.
It was in one of the games they talk about it. I can't remember if it's 1 or 2. But there's a point where she's explaining what goes on in it. Also,
she promises not to fall asleep during the movie.
And we forgot to mention that she's wearing a Pelican Drops shirt.
I love that the shirt was the same as the game.
Yeah.
Like, there were a couple things in there that were 100%. Did you see the first thing in the game when you're Sarah is you pick up the birthday card? Did you see the birthday card on the counter?
No, I didn't.
So it's that dinosaur, that like shitty green dinosaur thing. It was on her bedside dresser or whatever.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, she just walked past it, but I mean, I remember picking that up 3 times in a row when I had to, after my game kept crashing. So it's very imprinted in my mind. Yeah. But they had the card.
Kind of makes me wonder if we're going to see a bunch of Dawn of the Wolf posters everywhere throughout the season.
I hope so.
So she falls asleep, and you see Joel, who's still watching the movie, and then he gets a call from Tommy, who has apparently been arrested, and this is not the first time he needs bailed out.
Clearly.
It happens.
But it's interesting. So he says, he's like, it's not my fault.
Right.
I was at a bar. This guy started swinging at the waitress, so I knocked him out. And that made me think, was that an infected?
Is it or isn't it? It's just one of those.
They never actually say.
Yeah. So you can interpret it any way you want to.
So Joel leaves to go bail him out because apparently it's a Friday, and if he doesn't get him that night, he'll be there all weekend.
Checks out.
But before he leaves, he carries Sarah, who's still asleep, puts her in bed, puts a blanket over her. Just very tender moment.
I'm going to call it bullshit because every time I try and carry my kids to bed, they wake up and want something.
True.
Anyway, Sarah's a great kid.
They're younger, though. They'll get to that point.
She was actually just pretending to be asleep so she wouldn't have to walk to her bedroom.
That also checks out.
So Joel is gone, and it cuts forward to sometime after 2 in the morning.
It's like,
2:16 a.m.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. All right, 2:16.
There are like noises outside, and you can see some green flashes, which that was an effect I really liked because instead of having a bunch of random explosions, you just have transformers popping.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah. And then you had the like low hovering helicopter that was the spotlight, and then you had the transformers exploding. It wasn't just like huge orange blooms on the horizon. It was local shit that you would see in your actual neighborhood.
Yeah, and it was like they did it right because I'm sure you guys have seen transformers blow before.
I've seen someone accidentally blowing up.
It always looks crazy with that bright green flash.
Yeah.
Seems like
pretty spectacular.
Yeah. So
let's go do one right now.
Up next. So it was a perfect effect, but she, for whatever reason, she goes downstairs and then the dog from next door, Mercy jumps up against the window and is like, kind of scratching at the window. So she goes in to let the dog in. Now in the game, I'm gonna cut to what happens there.
Yep.
In the game, when you play as her, you don't know why Joel is gone. You just know he's gone at that point. And she goes downstairs, and at that point, when she's wandering around, the neighbor who's infected just bursts in, and that's when Joel comes back and shoots him. But they switch it up. So in the show, she goes out to where the dog is, and it kind of gets back behind her, puts a paw on her leg. It's clearly scared, but it knows her and trusts her. But she's like, okay, I'm going to take you home. So she grabs his collar, starts walking toward the neighbor's house. That dog is freaking out, gets away, runs down the street.
Takes off, yeah.
Yeah. Which, again, made me kind of sad because, I hate to see a dog like that. But
Mercy's still out there somewhere.
Yeah, it was safer than being in the house with those people.
Yeah, yes, it was.
You gotta listen to the dog's spidey senses. They know.
Yeah, but you don't want a dog to lose its people. So
are they really people at this point?
Yeah, I care more about this dog than I do about any of the characters.
Clearly.
So what's crazy, this is what's interesting. I think you commented about this, Ryan.
Yeah.
Is it's after 2 a.m. She goes up. Her neighbor's door is open, and she goes in.
Yeah.
She's breaking every rule in the book to investigate.
So it's an interesting choice, but she walks in.
Well, they were like family. I mean, they watch her after school. Like, this is not just a random neighbor. This is someone that she knows very, very well. And the door's open, so she goes to check out what's going on. They're older.
Yeah.
But regardless of how well you know them, that is a sketchy situation at best for 2:20 in the morning.
Right. Because you think, okay, your dad's not home. You might want to just call the police and let them know something's going on.
So clearly a B&E.
Yeah. But
I
guess to your point, Rob, she knows them, she cares about them, and it's kind of a brave thing to do.
Yeah.
So she goes in, walks back, and as she steps into the kitchen, her foot slips, and there's blood down there. It follows the trail, and you see the man that lives there, who's laying against the wall. It looks like a big chunk of his neck has been bitten out, and he's just like, "Help me!"
Bleeding out.
Yeah. And so she walks a little bit closer, and his eyes move to
his left.
Yeah.
A little bit. And it's the old lady in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And she's not in the wheelchair anymore.
No, she is leaning down, like mouth at the neck of.
And I really loved that it looked like a classic zombie movie, where the zombie's eating the person, but that's not what was happening.
No.
When she pulls away, you see the fungus stuff coming out of her
tendrils,
mouth, that she's clearly infecting this person. And when she kind of stands up, it goes back into her mouth, and then she screams. That shot was fantastic.
Yes, it was. And at that point, she starts running at Sarah. So Sarah turns and runs out of the house. This is the point where Joel and Tommy pull up in the truck. Joel gets out. He's like, get in. He's got a massive wrench in his hand, and Tommy has this scoped rifle.
Well, I was just going to say, when Sarah gets out of the house, she gets about halfway across the yard, and as she turns to look around, the wheelchaired grandma, who is no longer in a wheelchair, trips on her way coming out, probably because she hasn't taken any steps in however many years, and snaps her leg.
Well, that's something else I was going to address in a minute. I love how aggressive let's just call them zombies for the sake of
the infected.
Yeah. I love how aggressive they are. And she runs, she hits the screen door, the storm door, and falls down the concrete steps, and you hear breaking of probably legs or arms or something is what you're talking about. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yep.
Well, and at that point, Joel and Tommy have to make a decision, because Tommy says, Joel, what are we doing? As she comes running toward them, and that's when Joel just clocks her in the head with
gangster shit, apparently.
With the wrench. And you see Sarah's reaction to this. She's horrified. As the viewer, that Joel has done what he had to do. But this is, not only has she just seen her dad kill someone, it's someone that she has known clearly for years,
taken care of and all that. Yeah.
And she just saw what happened to the rest of the family. So it's a very horrifying moment.
And a little bit of shock.
So they get in the car, they start to leave. He yells at another neighbor to go inside. And as they make a Yui, and at that point, the other two who have been infected come out, because they're now in full throes of infection.
Yeah.
And they start coming toward the car, so Joel just hits them. Yep. And it's interesting.
Drive through them.
You get the family driving off, and in the background, you hear one of the other neighbors just go, Jesus Christ, Joel. And he runs over to help one of the downed people, and then you see, as they're speeding in the background, the other one get up.
The husband comes over and
on that guy,
jumps on him. Yeah.
And it's a cool. I'll say this, in addition to all the other things I'm saying, it's a cool look at something like this going down in a suburban neighborhood where people aren't picking up on it, because it's not some grandiose explosive thing.
Right.
It's just isolated incidents that are snowballing.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of the intro to Dawn of the Dead, the remake.
Yeah.
Where it slowly builds to that point, because as we go, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which that intro to Dawn of the Dead was the same thing, run out of the house, and then it just keeps snowballing. And I love the way they did this, especially the truck going to the highway, and those shots through the windshield were phenomenal as we go. And the house, like, as soon as they get out, they're driving down the street, and they drive by the house that's on fire, straight from the video game.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that. And they're like, oh, that's whoever's place.
Jimmy's place.
It's Jimmy's place. And they're trying to get to the highway, and as soon as they pull on the on-ramp, there's cars coming off the highway on the on-ramp, and they realize that everything's blocked up. Everyone had the same idea, and that's when they go off-roading.
Which, the cool thing about that scene is they turn to go off-road toward the other highway, and other people clearly see them and follow.
Yeah, so I like that too.
Multiple trucks behind them,
which is exactly what happened.
Exactly, yeah. But
and
someone
then they
has
run
to be
right
first.
into the military.
You see that other truck that just keeps barreling toward them.
I assumed like that shot.
I was waiting to see that truck get lit up.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as that they stopped and the other truck went past them, I was like, well, 50 cals, they're going to open up.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of skip past that, and they go to another dirt road to go into, I guess, the smaller town square kind of like a Gravette. If you're in Northwest Arkansas, a smaller area.
They catch the county highway or whatever over.
Exactly.
And that's a cool scene because they start driving through. There are all these people on the street. Joel's yelling at Tommy to just keep going. You know, Tommy's trying not to hit anyone. Sarah during this whole thing has been freaking out in the back, like, what's happening? What is it? Are we going to be sick? You know, so they're trying to reassure her while this is going on.
Right.
And they get to a point where they're going over a side street or going past a side street, and you hear Joel yell at Tommy, like, look out. And this car is coming.
Yeah.
Now in the game, that's where the car just T-bones them.
Yep.
And flips their truck. But it's a psych out for those that are expecting it, because the car stops. They keep going.
I even threw my hands up while I was watching. I was like, they didn't do it. They're going to wait and do something different.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to more of
those.
They did different.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention, as they're driving, you saw a couple of planes flying really low, like they're trying to find a place to land.
Yeah, multiple jets are...
to use the highway.
Are going.
So they end up like getting up to a point, all these people are rushing back toward them, so they start backing up to get away.
The movie lets out. And all the crazies come out. Yeah, they were all coming out of the theater.
Yeah. Like, it must have happened, like, mid-film, because you have a huge group of people coming out of the movie theater.
Makes sense, yeah.
Just losing their shit.
Or they were watching Jupiter Rising.
That's fair.
Where's Taylor? Where's Taylor when they do it? So they start backing up the truck, and suddenly they see this other jet that's coming down is about to crash. Yeah. So they start to try and move forward again. Sorry,
as they're going, you can see it in the background. It looks like it's going to roll over, do it Denzel Washington style landing.
Yeah.
He wasn't drunk.
No, he was just high on cocaine.
Anyway, proceed.
Woo!
But yeah, they're coming down, and like you said, they're trying to get out. The theater crowd is rushing them, and then they're like, "Oh, not good." Throw it in reverse and go back. And I kind of like how they left it hanging just a little bit, because you see the plane hit and the explosion, and the landing gear comes bouncing down the street.
I was going to say, it looked like landing gear to me. It looked like a wheel.
That's what it was.
Okay.
But then the screen goes black and they're upside down. So did they get hit by other debris?
No. What happened?
Did it bounce off the wall?
It bounced off the building next to them
and hit them?
And then ricocheted into the side of their truck.
Okay.
Yeah. They were broadsided by it and just flipped.
Gotcha. So they still got broadsided. It was just detached landing gear.
It was a different
not
type
a
of
Ford
wheel.
Bronco.
Yeah.
Is OJ there?
And as soon as they get out, Joel has to grab Sarah because her ankle is messed up. And they crawl out one side. Tommy gets out the other side. And, like, the next second, a cop car smashes into their vehicle at an alleyway, separating them. And Tommy is, yelling through the fire and the debris, like, I'll find you, go to the river. And they obviously didn't do it as big, but I'm glad they did him with Joel carrying Sarah through the buildings.
Oh yeah.
Because in the game it was so fun where you have, 30 infected running after your character as you're just trying to get out. And you had that one guy in this one that's, they walk up to that alleyway and they're all down there doing the zombie dance, infecting other people. And that one just...
Well, it's because there's an explosion behind them.
Yeah, it wakes them up kind of.
Yeah.
And again, they go full force no matter what they're doing. And it's running after him. And he's just taking turns. Like he runs through a building and he goes left to go out of the front of the building. And the zombie is going, we're going to go with zombie, is running so fast after him, it can't even slow down to take the turn. It just smashes into the shit.
Right, just very single-minded.
And then immediately turns around and jumps to try and get him again and smashes into the bar. And it's that full, there's no slowdown mode for them. And I love the way they shot that.
It looked like it was shot very similarly to the way they did the zombies or the infected in World War Z.
Yeah. That's
like same movements and everything. Like you said, just leaping over the booths and sliding across. Just
more clumsy.
A little bit, but yeah, very singularly focused.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's one thing they need to do, and it's infect other people.
Yeah.
So then you get to the happy part.
Oh man.
Get to the field and the
yeah
Marine or whoever shoots the zombie that's coming after him, and they have that brief moment of, oh, thank God, somebody saved us.
Yeah. And I really like that little bit where the Marine or the soldier has the walkie, and you hear one side of the conversation, and you can just hear the voice get
he's questioning the orders, and you can tell he doesn't like.
And that last one is like, I understand. It's like, okay, you know what's coming next.
Where have we heard that before?
And
the Crazies.
Oh, the Crazies are awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. And
he opens fire, and they roll into the ditch. And as the soldier's walking up on them, he's like, I'm sorry. It's following orders kind of thing. And then Tommy appears out of nowhere and blows that guy's brains out. But it's already a little too late.
Yeah, well, the gun has fired, and you see Joel has twisted around with Sarah in his arms, and they both tumbled down the
hill. Joel got winged.
And, well, he
got skinned.
He does the second time the soldier fires. So he rolls down the hill, the soldier walks down, and Joel says, please don't, and then that's when Tommy shoots the guy as he's about to kill Joel.
Right.
Then you see Tommy's reaction as he sees Sarah, who has been shot in the first volley, and she is laying there. She's already bleeding out. She's gasping for breath, crying, and it's a terrible moment. You got Joel go over, and he's
trying to keep pressure on the wound, save her, keep her from bleeding out.
I mean, that was rough.
Yeah, there's clearly no hope, but he's trying.
He had his hope shattered twice in a 45-second time frame. Once the first time he thinks they're saved, and then realize this guy's going to shoot. He starts firing. They tumble down the hill. He's hurt. From the fall, he feels rough, looks down. Oh, it's just, I just got nicked a little bit.
'Tis a flesh wound.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, we're safe, we're good. Let me get Sarah, I'll pick her up, and we'll keep going. And then realizes that bullet that just barely caught him was a solid through and through on his daughter.
Yeah, that was, and when I played this game the first time, no kids. It's not really an issue. It's like when I watched it the first time, no kids. It's like, yeah, this is fun. Next time I watched it after I had kids, it's like, ugh, this is a little different. This one, man, that was rough. But it's also the catalyst to why Joel is Joel.
Right. That's what breaks him.
Yeah, going forward. And it shapes everything for the rest of the whole series.
Why he doesn't have a problem throwing small children into burn piles.
Yeah. And that's, I think we touched on
and that was
before.
the first 7 minutes of the film.
Yeah. Yeah. We spent a lot of time on this, but it's important.
It's very important.
And it's a great example of perfect casting. Obviously, Pedro Pascal, he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I don't know the actress's name that played Sarah, but she did an amazing job in that role.
She was great.
Yeah. And, the guy playing Tommy also, being able to be that third party looking, like that look of just devastation on his face, kind of grief as he looks down and he sees his niece is dying and he can't help her. He can't help his brother. Like really, really sold it.
It's family, but he knows it's more personal for his brother than it is for him.
There's nothing anybody can do about it.
And like that's the moment where Joel is breaking and he's more like in the zone, like this is terrible. Also, we got to keep moving forward.
Yeah. 20 years later.
Yeah. That's where you get the time jump.
In Boston, not Austin.
Austin to Boston.
So the next thing you see is this little kid walking into Boston, walking toward the quarantine zone.
The QZ.
Yeah, he's just stumbling in. He's not saying anything. They bring him in, strapped in, and that's where they introduce you to the scanners that can tell if they're infected. And it's also a moment that kind of humanizes the Fedra.
Yeah.
Because you've got this woman that's talking to him, asking how he got hurt. Then she sees that he's infected. So she just kind of comforts him and makes him think that everything's going to be okay as they inject something into him.
And the Fedra in this case is a military ruling party as well as the, medical, everything else. They're
Pills and bullets.
That's Atlanta.
Yeah. But it's controlled by them, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're all kind of connected, I think. But yeah, they're under military control, essentially.
It's like federal disaster response or something like that.
Military dictatorship.
And so the kid, when they scan him, the thing goes red, and she says, oh, okay, you're safe. I'm going to get you your favorite food. We're going to get you some toys. We're going to give you some medicine.
New clothes, ice cream.
Next thing you see is his body in the back of a truck.
Yep. And that's where Joel's working.
That's where Joel comes back, and the woman's like, I can't do it. It's a kid. And Joel, just dead-eyed, nothing, grabs him, no problem, throwing a child into the fire to burn out the fungus.
Yeah.
Which shows you how far he's been broken since his daughter died.
Right. He's and that's the first glimpse into the man he is at that point, and that he's a very, very hard person.
Well, if you listen to the sheriff from Dawn of the Dead, the remake, why can't I remember his name right now? Who's the actor?
The sheriff, Tom
Savini.
Savini.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you listen to Tom Savini, you got to burn him.
You have to burn him. So, I think we jump from that scene to, is that when we meet
Veronica?
Sorry, I can't. You mentioned Tom Savini, and I can't hear his name now without picturing the scene in From Dusk Till Dawn where he's trying to hide his teeth.
the teeth and the fingers.
Yeah.
Whoops. Anyway,
back to.
I think we shift from there to the introduction of, is it Ellie or is it Tess?
It's Tess. Well, before we get to that,
Veronica.
It's where you have Joel, like you see some people being executed for leaving the QZ, and then you got Joel go and he's selling some pills to one of the soldiers, one of the Fedra guys, and he's kind of making a deal to get a truck, but also that guy tells him, don't go out at night.
Stick inside a couple days. They're shooting people on the site, on site.
Yeah,
or on the spot.
But yeah, then you see Tess.
Which, hold on, I'm glad you mentioned that. I really liked the detail they did in that scene with him and the cop or the guard, military officer, whatever he is, where he sold him what was it? He sold him some hydrocodone or something. And when he gives him the bag, he's like, I need that bag back. Because this is post-apocalyptic. Those Ziploc bags are they're like money, essentially. And I like that he
was using cigarettes as money. Hey, you're $5 short.
Yeah.
And he gives him a tinfoil thing with...
Like that one scene showed a lot without just sitting there and just, going all the way through it. Mm-hmm. I love that short little snippet of this is where we are as a society now. And that was a great way to do it. And then, that's where we go to just Tess.
Who's being held hostage by Krampus.
Yeah. If you've listened to our Violent Night podcast, It's the guy that played Krampus. He was also in Freddy vs. Jason. That's where I remember him from.
Yeah.
And he's Robert.
Yes.
Good name.
We missed one of my favorite lines. Right when he's collecting his payment right before he goes to see that officer, and he's trying to collect as much as he can for the payment. And he's like, "What else you got today? Nothing today, but tomorrow we can or sweeping streets or cleaning sewers." He's like, "Okay, which one pays the best?" And it just like deadpan looks at him and goes, "That'd be the one with the shit."
Yeah. If you're going to clean shit, you're going to get paid a little bit more. So Krampus is holding Tess, and they're having a conversation that you're not entirely sure what's going on, but essentially Robert Krampus has kind of double-crossed her on some level, and she's telling him, I won't tell my friend that this happened. Let's just, go back to normal. This shit happens. Sometimes we have to do what we have to do, that kind of thing. And then there's just a massive explosion in the side of the building.
Well, my favorite part of that scene is the fact that, Robert is very concerned about Joel's reaction. And he's, and she's telling him, like, look, I get it. Things went down. Just let me go. We're good.
Yeah.
And and Robert's like, hey, but my guys beat you up. And she says, just discipline them. I don't know. Cut off that one's finger. I don't care. They're your guys.
You deal with it.
What a lie. But just to say, cut off his finger.
I'll make something up. You deal with them.
Which you do see a lot of people later on with only like thumbs. So
yeah. I don't really know what was going on with that.
There was a lot of it. John Malkovich.
apparently he was in this show.
But and then you have that explosion, and it's the Fireflies, which are the rebellion against the Fedra, they blew up a Hummer or Jeep or something outside that building that she was being held prisoner in. And as soon as she runs out, there's a firefight with the Fedra and the Fireflies, and she runs up to some of the Fedra, hands up, they're shooting at us.
I'm not a Firefly. I'm not a Firefly.
And they just ground her, cuff her, and take her in.
Yeah.
And then we shoot to the introduction of Veronica.
/ Ellie.
Yeah, which is where she's just chained up in a room, and at that point they don't reveal why, but they ask her to count, 1 to 10.
Slowly and clearly.
Yeah.
Make sure her hand's not shaking, all that stuff. And I did like when they walked out, you could see the Firefly symbol on the wall. So if you're paying attention, it's not a Fedra prison. It's a Firefly prison.
Right.
So it's a very different thing than it could have been as it was set up. Because I think anyone watching that doesn't know would just assume that it's the soldiers' prison.
Right. Up until she says, people are going to come find me, Fedra people.
Yeah.
That's her threat. But I think the next thing you see from there is where Joel, who now has his little tinfoil thing of cigarettes, cuts in front of a long line of people that are waiting to have radio messages.
Which I guess Joel's just a badass because I don't remember if he was that way. Was he like Clint Eastwood in the game?
A lot of people in the part of town he was in knew who he was.
Yeah.
In the game.
Because everyone was terrified of him.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess when you have nothing to lose, it's like, don't even make eye contact with that guy.
He's a survivor.
Yeah.
And actually, something I forgot to point out, and it's the same in both the show and the game, is that in the beginning, when they're in the truck, when they first have finished picking up Sarah, they're leaving, there's this family whose car is broken down that's trying to get them to stop to pick them up. Tommy is slowing down. Joel says, no, keep going. Tommy says, they've got a kid. He says, so do we.
Someone else will come along.
Yeah. And that's your first glimpse. That's your first glimpse, really, at who Joel is.
Yeah.
Like, Joel is not someone who goes out and just helps people. He has his people, and he will go to the ends of the earth for them, but
he's not going to stick his neck out for strangers, especially when he has his family.
Yeah, when it's a potential risk. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do we go to the guy with the radio, and he's, have you heard from Tommy? And we find out that Tommy has gone on some expedition to a tower somewhere.
Well, I don't know that he necessarily went to tower. He's left. and they had left him a message. Like, he's just gone.
Yeah.
And I think, based on the later conversation with Marlene, I think that it's similar to the game in which Joel and Tommy have had some sort of falling out. And Tommy was keeping him apprised of where he was, but he just hasn't checked in a while.
I was going to say, he asked the radio guy, he was like, what was his regularity or what was the frequency? He was checking in about every day or every other day. Okay, when was the last time you heard from him? 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to your point, he does even say to Marlene, which we'll introduce in a minute, you turned him against me or you brainwashed him or whatever it was, that line of he's now in the Firefly group as opposed to the we're surviving, fuck everyone else group.
Right. So at that point, he gets the guy on the radio to indicate on a map where this other tower is. And the guy points out, like, this is in Wyoming. You know, they're in Boston.
There's worse things out there than infected.
Yeah.
There's raiders, there's
slavers.
Yeah.
And then he gets cut off.
And then Joel goes back to his apartment, which I really liked the apartment more because it did a thing that video game shows do sometimes, where he, revealed his little hidden spot.
Yeah.
And he took out things that if you play the video game, you immediately recognize. The pistol, took out the crowbar, like the little things that he uses throughout the game.
Right.
I was like, that's a nice little just nod to the game itself. I don't know if we'll ever see him again. I mean, obviously the pistol we're going to see again, but he uses the crowbar to break into buildings all the time in the game. So I love that little piece of it. Just a little nod to the game right there. And then he sits down, he's mapping out the route to get to where supposedly Tommy's at. And while he's doing this, he's taking a bunch of pills and drinking a bunch of what looks like bourbon to pass out. As in his head, we hear, those final moments of his daughter dying, which is what he's trying to drown out. That remorse bit of it. After he's asleep, Tess sneaks in, crawls in bed with him, and you kind of cut to black until the morning.
When she's making him breakfast.
Familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. She, I won't say she's taken Sarah's place because that'd be a little weird, but in a way it is, someone else that's taking care of him.
Yeah.
And pointing him in a direction so he doesn't just spiral.
Right. And they talk about, she's beat up pretty good.
Yeah.
And she, I got beat up by, she tells a story that she told Robert she would tell. And then she's like, oh yeah, they were Robert's guys. He double-crossed us. Which
it's funny because in the show, in the game, she just says, yeah, I got jumped by a couple of guys. And insinuates that they're dead for messing with her.
Yeah.
But so this was kind of a nice change, but sticking to that dialogue.
Well, and it gives you somewhere to go.
Yeah.
That's a little more direct. And she's like, I promised him you wouldn't hurt him, but I really want you to hurt him. And then he goes back and gets the rest of his supplies out because they're going to go get. The whole deal with Robert was to get a battery for a truck so they could get out of the city.
Right, to go after Tommy.
Yeah.
So at some point, and I've mixed up where this fell in, but at some point during all of this, Marlene has walked into the Firefly lair, we'll call it, and talking to the other people that are in charge, asking, has X team gone to their position? And the woman there says, no, I didn't send them. I have questions. So clearly this is a group that's not just straight up following orders without a rationale. So at that point, she tries to tell him, like, you got to follow orders. But then the one woman who is clearly questioning her, she explains what's going on, or she shows her a piece of paper that has something on it that
changes her mind.
Just completely changes it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do want to point out the actress playing Marlene actually did the voice work for Marlene in the game.
Yeah. I like that a lot. And they made her up perfect. Like, she was spot on.
Oh, she kills it.
Yeah, that was great. Because I read some interview like a month ago where she was talking about, she's like, there's no way I'm going to get this part. And they're like, well, but you did the voice.
Yeah.
Why don't you just do the part?
And it's funny, you can tell too, because all of her spoken lines, like just the like the cadence
Yeah.
and how clear her voice is. That's clearly a tool she's used a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah. And she, I mean, as an actress, she did a great job.
Yeah. Oh, she did. Yeah. But you have that scene where she's talking to them, and then another scene where she goes in and, reveals to, air quotes, Veronica,
Yeah.
that one, she knows her name is Ellie, and two, she was the one who initially put her in the Fedra child soldier camp because she thought that would be the safest place for her.
Right. As an orphan baby. Yeah.
Yeah. And she also lets Ellie know, hey, we, I'm not going to let you go. Think about it. You would just be killed if you went back here. There's something bigger for you. We are going to take you out west.
Yeah. There's a purpose for you.
Yeah.
Essentially. And then unlocks her chains and everything else. It's like, you can't go free, but you're going to help a lot of people. That kind of thing. And then I think that's when we cut back to Tess and Joel searching down for Robert. And I liked the Joel hanging out by the building and Tess is getting information. And a guy kind of walks up. He's like, hey, how's it going? He goes, if you say, show me the light, I'm going to break your jaw. Like he's so tired of the fireflies that's his immediate response. I like that spot. And then Tess comes back and says, all right, we know where he is. This is how we get here. And we got to go underground, and then we're going to go up, and we're going to surprise them, and we're going to get our shit. Plus some.
Yeah, so then they move on to actually go. They have to go into the subway and then back up to get to the building where Robert supposedly is.
Which the subway is a big piece of the game. You're in the subway multiple times.
Yes.
Subways, I guess. And
I think, actually, let me go forward a little bit. So they go into a room, like Tess sees, okay, this is the doorway we need to go into. They open a door, step in, shining lights around, and then she gets frightened for a second because there is the body of an infected basically fused to the wall by fungal growth.
Yeah.
Which is something you do see in the game. However, at that point, those serve as spore generators, basically. So anytime you're around an area with spores in the game, Joel will put on a gas mask.
Which I was wondering if they were going to do that.
I'm glad they didn't. I feel like that you just have too much of masks on and off.
Yeah, it makes sense for the game because you don't have to actually do it. It just happens automatically. It's a cinematic thing.
And logistically, it doesn't really make all that sense because there are going to be cases where you get close to it, you breathe some spores in, and then oh.
Yeah. And he even says, this one's spent. This one's done. It's inert. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
But it also gives you your first real good look at what is happening to people. Because the only other look we've got is the essentially zombie running crazy people. And now you see this fungus person that has been just totally eaten away by the fungus, fused into the wall. And it gives you a look into what you're going to see in the future of this series, I assume, based on everything else.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see for that.
My God.
So after that, you've Joel and Tess start climbing up between walls. And that's a great moment because Joel just out of nowhere starts talking about, this must have been
remodeled in the 80s. They were trying
to have more space.
They were making condos out of apartments. Yeah. What the fuck are you talking about, Joel? We're going to a shootout.
I'd be more concerned about the asbestos.
But they get up there where they're going to, jump out, and there's a hidden panel, and Tess is pushing on it. One open. They see the blood coming out the door.
He smells gunpowder. He
smells gunpowder.
Why does it smell like gunpowder?
Which, when he was smelling, that was another one of those where I was like, are they going to do a fungus thing here? Because you had the particles in the air and all that.
Yeah.
Which I liked that they had the flashlights. And the way they use the flashlights was very similar to the game itself. Because
just without having to shake them every so often.
Well, yeah, other than that. We'll see. Maybe he'll do a little old-fashioned on them one time. But the fact that they, especially the shot where you see that first fungus person, because she slowly shines it across the room, which in the game when you're walking through those dark rooms, you can only see what you're shining your flashlight on, what you're walking toward. And I liked that shot as far as a fan of the game. So I hope they continue some of that with the suspense, because I was watching in the background, I couldn't see it at all. So they totally blacked it out, so there was no way for you to see it until she shined her light on it.
Yeah.
And what we were talking about, she opens the door up, and Robert's behind it.
Dead.
He's got a bullet in his face.
Which is unfortunate. I would have liked to see a little bit more dialogue from that actor, because I do like him.
He's fun, yeah. Which I'm not going to talk about that. So yeah, they find Robert's entire crew is dead in the hallway, shot to shit, and they hear like moaning and people kind of whispering, and they go around the corner, and that's when they run into Marlene, the first time that Joel and Tess run into them that we've seen, but they clearly know who each other are.
Yeah,
they're not strangers at all. And as soon as they start walking down the door or the hallway, a door opens, Ellie jumps out with a knife, and Joel just body checks her into the wall. Which that was just a fun shot of, this is the introduction of these two characters.
Yeah.
Checking her and then stepping on her knife so she can't grab it.
Well, and that's also the great point, because he turns and he's got the gun on her, but he's kind of got this bemused look on his face, like, this is a kid.
Yeah.
And that's when you've got Marlene with a big bullet hole in her side, just, Joel?
Ellie's sassy that whole time too. Like, I can't believe this guy's kicking my ass right now.
Yeah, I don't remember if she was that much of a prick in the game.
Yeah, she was.
Was she? Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, she was full on like, you asshole. Like, every time he did anything to hinder her standing up or getting her knife back or moving, she was just spitting fire at Joel. And that was also where you have the moment of Marlene saying, "Don't point your gun at her, point it at me." Like, she's doing everything she can to keep Ellie safe because she knows something. And now that she also, and this is where you find out the double cross with the battery was for Marlene, and the battery was garbage.
Yeah, battery wasn't even good. Like, they show the battery and it's, covered in battery acid and probably hadn't worked in
just
5
corroded.
years.
And,
yeah.
One of the best little things during that scene is before he puts his boot on the knife, it's still sitting there, and Ellie goes to grab it. He puts his boot, and he gives her this look. It's just really quick, but it's this look like, really?
He's like, asshole.
Yeah, I don't know. I just loved that. And then you've got the conversation where Marlene, quickly thinking on her feet, says, "You know what? The Fireflies were going to escort her to the town hall or whatever.
Yeah.
We need you to do it. So I'm going to incentivize you two to take her. I know what you're capable of, like, for better or worse." And that's, Ellie, like, what? Wait,
you'll get a truck, gun, supplies, whatever you want. Just make sure she gets to wherever they were supposed to be taking her safely.
Some city, some town hall, something. Yeah.
And
her friend says, "Well, I'll just do it." And she turns over and says, "You don't have a fucking ear."
And that's when the friend turns her head and her ear is basically blown off.
And you didn't see it before, but yeah, her entire ear is shot off.
And Joel is hesitant to do it because he makes the comment as soon as it comes up. He's like, "I don't smuggle people."
Well, and also, I mean, this is
apparently
this is that moment for Joel where this is a kid about his daughter's age when she was killed. Yeah. So it's, I'm not even gonna step into this arena. And then Marlene promises what they really wanted was the truck and the supplies. And essentially Tess, they have that kind of silent conversation. Like they've clearly known each other a long time because it's unspoken. And he's just like, "Okay." And she goes back and says, "Okay, we'll do it, but they're going to give us everything we want when we get there."
Right. Or we're just going to kill her.
Or we're going to kill her. Yeah.
And it's interesting because when you play the game, they're actually after guns that they were going to sell that Robert had stolen from them and sold to the Fireflies. So their incentive is to get the guns and more back. There's no, like in the game, Tommy is gone, but at that point there's no decision to go after him. Like that's not.
Yeah, they're not looking for Tommy at all in the game. Yeah.
Whereas in this one, they are already trying to get out and go find Tommy, which actually kind of aligns with what the Fireflies want anyway. Because it's like, well, you get her this far, and then we'll have things for you to continue your journey.
Yeah, that added piece of sweeten the pot kind of thing we know you want to go out there. So, hey, if you do it, we'll give you the means to your end.
Yeah, anything you could want.
Yeah, a blank check. And they go back to Joel's from here. And I like this scene a lot, too, because it shows how savvy Ellie is. When they get in there and Joel just lays down to go to sleep. And she's like, what am I supposed to do? He's like, figure it out. Whatever.
She figured something out.
And she gets that book of top hits of the last century or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And there's the paper in there with the code of, 70s is nothing, or what was it? 60s is nothing. 70s is there's new stock, and then 80s is just a big X. And she's like, what does this mean? And he pretty much just tells her to fuck off. He goes to sleep, wakes up, it's nighttime, and Ellie says, while you were sleeping, the song came on the radio. And he's like, what was it? He goes, something about Kiss Me Before You Go-Go. And he's like, fuck. And she goes, code broken. And she's just,
that means
poking
trouble.
him. Yeah. It's a bad thing. 80s songs are bad. And it's at this point, she's just like poking him, kind of figuring him out a little bit. And I like that back and forth a lot.
Yeah, of course, it is possible that she misinterpreted his reaction at that point. He could have just been really upset because she reminded him that he would never see Zoolander again.
That's fair. Blue Steel. And from here, we start the journey.
Yes.
Tess comes in, ready, get your shit.
Grab a jacket, let's go.
They get out, and they go underground again. They come out through essentially a manhole cover that is camouflaged. Ellie's ecstatic that she's outside of the city. She's, I'm outside of the walls. Almost gets caught immediately.
Yeah.
They're sneaking through, and they come across a cop pissed on the wall, and he, I guess, hears them or something, because he immediately jumps up and grabs his gun, and it's the cop that Joel was selling drugs
earlier
to.
on. Yeah.
Which, by the way, that actor looked familiar. I feel like I've seen him in something.
Yeah, I thought so too. I couldn't place him, but yeah, I agree. And this scene was very well done with the mirror of the scene at the end of the prologue, because you have him, get down on your knees. You're caught. We're going to do this by the book. He's scanning them, all that. And then you find out that Ellie scans infected. And at that point,
before you see it, like he's scanning them, and while it's happening, they're trying to make deals with him, and he's kind of negotiating with them too as he continues to do his duty.
Yeah.
But right as he starts to scan Ellie, she stabs him in the leg with her.
Right. I mean, you hear it go off
Yeah.
the bad way, like you did earlier on with the kid, and she stabs him, and he's got the gun, and he's pointing at her, and Joel steps in the way, and you have that flashback of him with the soldier with his daughter, and instead of trying to reason, he just goes fucking Hulk and charges him and beats him to death. It looks like
just keeps punching him in the face, and it's very raw.
It's totally visceral because of what he's been through. It's that all of these things have led up to this, and we're redoing it, but I'm going to do it right this time.
Now, and this is, I like how they did this because, again, in the game, because it's a game, you're taking out a lot of people to get to basically this point. But up to now in the show, we haven't really seen any of what Joel is capable of.
Right.
At this point in his life. And you just see that switch flip, and he can be incredibly violent.
Yeah. Goes from fully intact with himself. He understands exactly what he needs to do to, I need to destroy this in order to get to the next step.
And then there's the different reaction, because whereas, when he had to take out the grandmother in the beginning, Sarah was horrified. Ellie is she's got this look like she feels like she should be horrified, but she's just also kind of fascinated.
Intrigued, yeah.
But she's also intimidated, because she could see, okay, maybe I don't want to mess with this guy too much.
I wrote that down too. And it almost looked like, oh, someone's going to fight for me. Like, because there was one shot where she was like, "Oh shit, like, okay, this might work." You know, she was like almost smiling,
some respect.
Yeah,
when he attacked him. Whereas, in Civilization, in the prologue, his daughter was just in shock almost and crying because this is not what you do in a civilized world. Whereas now, that's a heroic thing to do, to beat a guy to death, to save this person that you're trying to smuggle across,
right?
Whatever the zone is.
Yeah, she had that look of it was a combination of kind of excitement and shock and yeah, like, oh shit.
Yeah. Well, it also gives you, the first hint at this is who this guy is now. He's not the guy that's going to sit and reason with you forever. If you get to a certain point, he's going to turn it on and just go after it.
Yeah.
Which sets up future episodes of him being the protector, because that's essentially what he's hired for.
Yeah.
And then I think from there we have that awesome shot of the city and the radio clicks on and it's Depeche Mode. Yeah. Which means it's an 80s song, which means there's trouble. And as they're walking into the ruined city, which is a fucking gorgeous shot, you see a creature on one of the buildings screaming. You don't know if it's like seeing them or anything, or if it's just one of those shots of this is what we're starting to get into now.
Yeah.
But that was a great, huge, this is our next step, which I really hope that they spend some time going through those buildings, because that was the most fun of the game, going through those old buildings that had fallen all over on each other and whatnot.
That was really cool, yeah.
Yeah. I liked it a lot. I mean, as far as video game adaptations go, this is phenomenal.
It is. We talked about casting for the first part. I think they've done really well, all told. I know there was a lot of pushback early on when people saw that. Is it Bella Ramsey? Is that her name?
Yeah,
I think
Ellie.
Yeah, that she was cast as Ellie. I think she's nailing it. It's for anyone that's not familiar with the game. Seeing her now. It's a stark contrast between Sarah, who was instantly likable,
right,
and Ellie. But it's important because you had to like Sarah really quickly because they were going to kill her off within 20 minutes. Whereas Ellie is more of a longer term thing. And, again, with the kind of the attitude that I remember her having in the game, it's being channeled perfectly right now. So I think it's going in the right direction.
And I was a little wary of Pedro. I mean, he's a great actor, but when I think of Joel from the video game, I was thinking this, really, really gruff older guy, but I thought he nailed it. I mean, he did a great job of being that a survivor Joel of don't fuck with me.
Yeah. And, I think really they did end up going with Pedro Pascal because Brian Cox was unavailable.
That must have been it. Yeah. Hugh Jackman was out too.
Well, Hugh Jackman wouldn't do it because he can't sing through the whole thing.
Oh yeah, he'd just be whistling Dixie.
Yeah.
Anything else? I mean, I'm really excited for the show now. Before I was like, it's another video game. Now, rock hard.
This is proof that it can be done, but you got to have the right people doing it.
Yeah, it's working so far. So hopefully they can carry that on. And I mean, the fact that we also have like coming up Nick Offerman as Bill. Yeah. Bill was a great character.
Yes, he was.
And I'm very excited to see him take over that role.
Well, just as soon as during the trailer when it showed him, I knew he was Bill. As soon as he popped
That's
up.
What I said too.
That dude, yes.
I was talking to somebody and they're like, well, who's Nick Offerman? I'm like, it's clearly Bill. Look at him.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I thought he was whoever. I was like, no, just look at him for a second in that trailer. It's obviously Bill. And it looks like they're going to do, because in the game you can do backstory with notes and things you find and you read. In this, I really hope that they do actual shots of either it happening or flashbacks of what these other characters went through as you go along, because you can't do the notes and read. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but like what happened as these other characters have lived outside of the QZ.
Yeah. Hope maybe we'll find out what happened to Ish. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. What did we miss anything?
I think we covered it all.
I mean, there's a lot of nods to the game that we probably missed. Just this is my first time seeing it. You've seen it
A couple times.
a couple times. Oh, already, yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan, you committed now?
Yeah.
Sunday. John Cena.
All right. Yeah, no, again, not having ever played the game, not being at all familiar with the game, I'm still excited to watch the next episode and see where this goes.
Yeah. And I mean, again, Sally liked it, which should tell you something. As a video game adaptation, she don't do no video games.
It was no Street Fighter, but
to be fair,
To be fair,
it is based on a game, but it's a game that has a really well crafted story. That it's more like the mechanics of the game were created to work with that story, as opposed to trying to cram in some story elements into a game. So that's really helping it. But
that's one of the things I'm wondering going forward, because what we've seen in the first episode is the first very big narrative part of the game. And from here, it's a lot of you creeping and action and killing things. So I wonder how they're going to work their way through that. If this tells us anything, they'll figure it out and they'll make it work.
Yeah. It seems, based on what we've been shown so far, it looks like they are going to show all of that, all of the horrors of the modern landscape, but also humanize the people, show why they've become that way.
Right.
And their viewpoints. But I think they'll do well, as long as they don't let anyone from Amazon come in and help.
None of the Witcher writers.
Yeah. Them either. But I'm thinking more specifically, Wheel of Time and Rings of Power.
Yeah. You got a bone to pick.
You could say that.
Yeah. If you haven't played the game, it's still amazing. Go check this out. It's HBO. The first episode came out. Was it Sunday?
2 days ago. Yeah.
Sunday. Yeah.
These are Sundays. It was great. Definitely check it out. Also, listen to more of our podcasts. RobGilchristBooks.com, Talking with Words on Instagram, Facebook. You can check out all of our other stuff, our Comic-Con experience. We are on pretty much every single podcast app around, I think, at this point. I don't think we're missing any now. I signed us up for, what was the last one? It was some little dinky. I don't even want to say it because now I said dinky. We love your support. But yeah, thanks for listening. We're probably gonna do a mid-season on this one and then a finale on this one, kind of like we did with Peacemaker, just because it seems so good already. I'm gonna go ahead and halfway commit to it, 3/4 commit to it, 5/8. All right, hey, thanks for listening. Talking with Words. Here's Charlie.
Are we recording?